Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for this Innovator webinar for the Mobility Unlimited Challenge. As you know, this is a webinar for anyone who is interested in entering the Mobility Unlimited Challenge. So really we're going to be talking about what we're looking for with the entrance and any hints and tips that you may need to be aware of. If you have any questions at any time, do just get in touch either through the chat or you can contact us directly via our website. And there's the mobilityunlimited@challenges.org email. In terms of this webinar, first I'll introduce myself and my fellow panelists. We'll talk a bit about the prize, the challenge, I beg your pardon, thinking of giving you more information as to what the challenge is about, who and what's involved, what we're looking for, and the structure. And then we'll follow up with Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please do add them to the chat. Anything that we're not able to answer today, we will respond to via a blog that will have the video of this webinar. And as I said, you can also contact us directly via the email mobilityunlimited@challenges.org. Okay, everyone, so my name is Charlotte Macken. I'm a program manager here at Nesta's Challenge Prize Centre. We are the design and implementation partner for the challenge. So Nesta is an innovation foundation in the UK. Our mission is all around supporting innovation for social good. And the Challenge Prize Centre sits within Nesta, and we're all about using challenge prizes, which the Mobility Unlimited Challenge has won. But challenge prizes, we're all about using them to support innovation for social good. So a challenge prize is about identifying a problem that needs solving, looking at why the barriers are there for innovation solutions to come through, and then creating a prize that incentivizes people to solve the problem, but giving them the space to be creative about how they do that. It's worth mentioning, very importantly, that this challenge is supported and directed by the Mobility Unlimited, by Toyota, the Toyota Mobility Foundation, I beg your pardon, which is a charitable foundation set up by Toyota. Its mission is all around creating more mobile societies. The foundation does lots of different things, and I do encourage you to visit their website. They do projects around infrastructure, making societies and communities more mobile, but they also have a number of projects which focus on vulnerable and underserved communities, creating bespoke solutions for those communities, and the challenge is very much sits within that stream of their work. I'm also joined today by someone from one of our partners. Garrett, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi all, my name is Garrett Grindle, and I'm representing my colleagues here at the Human Engineering Research Laboratories. We are a partnership between the University of Pittsburgh and the VA Pittsburgh Healthcare System. And we have a long history of developing technologies for people with mobility impairments. Our role in this competition is to serve as the subject matter experts to really help drive the competition and the applicants in a direction where we're creating highly innovative solutions that will actually get out there and help people. On the practical side, we will be inviting the assessors that are experts in the field that will be reviewing the applications. We'll facilitate those reviews. And at the end, we'll help aggregate and summarize all those reviews for the judging panel, which will help select the winners. Once the winners are actually selected, we'll aid in sort of the monitoring and the mentoring process here, really to help ensure that our 5 winners from this round will have a very strong submission for the next round and be ready to put on a good show in Tokyo. So that is our role here.
Great, thanks, Garrett. Okay, so a bit about the headlines for the challenge. So the Mobility Unlimited challenge. It's a $4 million challenge that seeks to support radical improvements, and that radical is really important there. Radical improvements in the mobility and independence of individuals with lower limb paralysis through the creation of smart personal mobility devices that incorporate intelligent systems. So quite a few words there, and I'll unpack some of that in the coming slides. Really, it's, as I said, radical improvement. So we're not looking for things that make slight differences. We're looking to really push the boundaries as much as possible. It's really worth noting that this challenge, we're looking for personal mobility devices, but we recognize that people with lower limb paralysis, that's a broad spectrum, very different experiences, even with people who may on paper have the same conditions. But actually it's very broad. And so the devices that people need, what's suitable for one person won't necessarily be suitable to another. So recognizing that, we're open to all different kinds of devices. However, it does have to be a personal mobility assistive device. And what do we mean by that? We mean something that helps someone move about their everyday life. It's moving themselves. So if you were perhaps thinking about creating a robot that would go off and do errands for someone and come back, that's not going to be suitable for the challenge. Likewise, it's a personal mobility device, so it's not something like a car or an infrastructure piece. It can be a complete device or something that adds on to an existing device to enhance it. And it must be for someone who identifies as having lower limb paralysis. And the thing that makes this prize really special is the fact that we are looking for devices that incorporate intelligent systems. So what do we mean by that? What we mean is devices, we want, maybe you can use some buzzwords, you can say machine learning, you can say AI, but ultimately it's any software that allows sensors to pick up information from the environment. So it may be from the individual, their body, their intention, translate that into dynamic responses. So what we're looking for is that dynamic response to be to one or more of the following. So the user's intention, the surrounding environment and hazards, the user's body, or improving the functional parameters to the device. And it must be a device that is suitable for everyday living, so work, leisure, and really minimizing the cognitive load on the user. And it has to also center the user. We're really looking for things that are very much user-centered. So you also must be giving consideration to how comfortable it is and how easy it is to use. Once again, just to remind everyone, if there's any further questions, that if there's anything we're talking about here that you're not familiar with, please do visit the website. The Innovator Handbook is really your Bible for all things about the challenge. There are FAQs on there, and you can also get in touch with us if there's anything that you're still not clear about. And do remember, if you have any questions, please add them to the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer them today. And if not, we'll come back to them through the blog. So what is the prize looking for? As I said, we're open to a range of types of devices. They need to be about improving people's mobility and independence on a daily basis, and they need to be suitable for users who identify as having lower limb paralysis. But that said, that's a very broad range of potential entries, and we're really excited about all the incredible things that we might receive. So it might be everything from something that plugs onto a manual wheelchair to make it more dynamic and responsive. It might be an autonomous powered wheelchair. It could be an exoskeleton or another type of orthotic, or it could be something that has not even been created yet. And we're really excited to see all of those diverse entries. However, we also have an amazing panel of judges who will be selecting who our 5 finalists and our eventual winner are. We'll get onto that a little bit more in a moment. And to support them to identify the relative potential impact of these devices, because they are going to be diverse, we've created judging criteria. So judging criteria is about allowing us to compare and evaluate diverse entries against the goal of the challenge. So what are our judging criteria? Our first criteria is around innovation. So it's about an entry needing to be new and innovative, incorporating intelligent systems to support and deliver that improved mobility and independence. And some of the things that judges might be looking for is products and devices that demonstrate a new or adaptive way of utilizing intelligent systems to deliver that mobility. It could also be, as I said, be a plug-on that does that. And it should really be significantly different to what's already available on the market. We're looking for stuff that's new, aspirational, exciting, but ultimately practical. Criterion 2 is around insight and impact. And this is really to make sure that whatever gets through and gets funding from the prize is really responding to wants and needs of the users. So you really have to be able to demonstrate how your entry is going to deliver to what people want and need for their mobility and independence. And you're also going to really need to show how your entry is being co-created with users. And we'll get on to co-creation a little bit more in a moment, but that's a really important thing to remember. So what will the judges be looking for here? You're really going to need to show that you understand the issues and priorities that people face, that your entry is going to really meaningfully improve, support the improvement for people and respond to specific needs. So how will it address those needs? And we're really going to be looking for entrants who can show how their entry has been meaningfully developed through meaningful engagement with the users. So that again touches on that co-creation point. And as I said, don't worry if you're not familiar with the term, we will be coming back to that a bit in a moment. So the third judging criteria is functionality and usability. So this is really about being able to demonstrate how your entry delivers measurable improvements in the functionality that users require while still being comfortable and easy to use. And these are products that people are going to be using in their everyday lives. So we want things to be really looking for things that are attractive and enjoyable to use. This should be something that really enhances people's lives. So again, things that the judges might look for here is really things that entries that can deliver measurable improvements in functionality and really something that will deliver high quality user experience. Criterion 4 is around quality and safety. I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone joining us today that actually that safety point is really important. You know, this needs to be, your entries need to be stuff that will be reliable and of high quality, and the intelligent systems that are incorporated into your entry need to be secure and resistant to malfunction. Anything that is going to be dynamically responding to the user, their body, the environment, needs to be able to deliver that. So the judges will be looking for in this area things that are really reliable and durable, the reliability and durability that they can show during user testing, that entries are adhering to robust safety measures, and that there has been consideration given in the entry to how you'll protect privacy and security of the user and their data. And the fifth criterion is about market potential and affordability. So we are looking for things that will ultimately get to market. We want to make sure that the funding we give, so Toyota Mobility Foundation as a charitable foundation, their mission is all around sort of supporting society, supporting mobility. So the money they give out has to kind of support that aim. So we're really keen that these are entries that kind of get out of the testing and at some point in the future get to market. So we're looking for teams that should be given thought to being able to demonstrate a route to market, with consideration given to the manufacturing, marketing, and eventual scale, and also consideration given to the cost to the consumer and how it can be made financially accessible to a wider user group. So some of the things we'll be looking for there are around a clearly articulated business plan from prototype to product, and how it can be made financially accessible for its target audience. Now, the thing to remind you here is that on the 15th of August, which I'm sure is the date that you're all focused on, well, I hope it is, we're looking for like earlier stage devices. So we are looking for things that sort of have some proof of concept. You may have a working model, but we're giving out the $500,000 grant to help you develop your device. So you may have been listening to me talk there thinking, well, that's far, like what they're describing there is actually further down the road than I am now. And that's okay. In 2020, one of the finalists that we select at the next stage will be awarded a further $1 million. And at that stage, what we'll be looking for is a prototype device that is capable of user demonstration. So with that in mind, of course, we do not expect you to be able to demonstrate everything that I just described. In August, what we'll be looking for is for you to show the potential of your entry against these judging criteria. The emphasis, although all of the judging criteria will be considered in August, the emphasis will really be around the innovations, the insight and impact, and the functionality. With those with the latter judging criteria around quality, safety, market potential, and affordability, we want to see that you're thinking about that, but we in no way expect you to have everything nailed down. So what you must remember, if you're going to remember one thing from this slide, is, well, two things ideally. One, remind yourself that this is all on the website, and we really do strongly urge you to go and look at the website, look at the Innovator Handbook. And two, in August, we're looking for you to show potential, demonstrate your potential against these judging criteria. And then if you are successful and you get through as a finalist, we'll then be later on down the road in 2020, we'll be looking for you to demonstrate how you deliver against these judging criteria. I'd like to hand over to Garrett at the moment, and just for everyone joining us, to let you know, Garrett, I'm over here in London in the UK, and Garrett is obviously joining us from Pittsburgh, so it's not just you guys who are on the end of the phone in front of the computer screen, it's us as well. I'd like to hand over to Garrett. Garrett, could you maybe talk a little bit about why, based on kind of the experience you guys have at Hurl, what these criteria set out is so important?
Thanks, Charlotte. Why these criteria are so important is for many reasons, but I want to first start by saying that a lot of thought went into designing these criteria, and the real hope here is that these are going to guide you to high impact solutions that will impact people with mobility impairments. We find that there are a lot of new things out there, a lot of new approaches in a wide range of fields. We really want to make sure that you bring that novelness from whatever your corner of whatever field you're in, is bringing it into mobility. And that's why we're putting a high emphasis on smart solutions and about the overall sort of originality of the idea. We think there's a lot of need here, and we think that there's a lot of exciting things that could help fill that need. We really want you to address real challenges, and this is where a lot of the co-creation and the involvement with people with disabilities on your team is. It's really hard to understand real problems unless you've get it directly from a person who's affected by it, and there's plenty of challenges out there, so there's no real need to go out and invent problems. There's plenty of them out there, and we really want you to focus on that. Once you've sort of identified a solution, the implementation of it needs to work with with people. It must be able to interact with them. It must be able to work safely with them, and it must actually fill that need and also be useful in the environments that they want to use that device in. So we can't emphasize enough about being able to invite people with disabilities to participate as themselves, maybe the primary person signing up for this challenge, but we also want people that might not have a disability to partner with people with disabilities to sort of further their work and really understand the problems. On the safety and quality, we don't want to hurt anybody. I hope that's obvious, but with all medical devices or devices of this sort of nature, especially when they might be edgy, especially when we're using software, we want to see approaches that help mitigate the risks. There's always risks when you sort of use dynamic systems like this, but we're really interested in novel approaches to addressing that part of the challenge also. And lastly, I can't stress enough how important the business piece of this is. Really what it comes down to is if nobody can produce this in a way that's economically viable, then nobody will produce it. And then really, who does that solution really help if it's not out on the market and available? So we're really looking for approaches that take that into account. It can be a novel business approach. It doesn't have to be a well-worn pattern. Well-worn patterns may work for certain devices, and that's good too. But we really want to see people that are thoroughly understand this piece of the challenge also. So hand it back over to Charlotte here to explain a little bit about the eligibility criteria.
Thanks, Garrett. Okay, so we've talked about what our aim is, we've talked about what we're looking for, and now it's time for us to talk, as Garrett said, about who we're looking for. So the thing to really keep in mind is that we are open to all. We try to make this challenge as open and accessible for people. That's why we have really thought very carefully about how we've structured our funding offer to provide as many people as possible with grants that will help develop devices, rather than just giving a larger pot of money to someone who's already on the road or further down. So that's what our eligibility criteria really tries to reflect. So the role of the eligibility criteria is to set out some of the expectations that we have of people and teams who enter the challenge, and some of the legal considerations, because as I mentioned, Toyota Mobility Foundation is a charitable foundation based in Japan. And as any of you, I'm sure, who are familiar with charity law anywhere in the world, we do have to, Nesta is also a charity, and we have to be very clear about the way that money is used and that it's used appropriately. So there's some considerations inserted into this eligibility criteria that reflect those responsibilities we have as charities. So first, co-creation, and we've mentioned this a little bit before, and this is really, co-creation is really emphasizing our belief, as Gareth has already said, in the importance of engaging users meaningfully in the development of a device. That means not just asking a couple of questions and then assuming you know what's happening and going away. It means not just doing some testing when you're further along the road, but actually really engaging meaningfully with your users in however you can. And ideally, engaging with more than one user. As we know, devices, what people need and the challenges they face can be very personal, so it's important to engage with more than one user to make sure that your device is as helpful as possible. So in the co-creation eligibility criteria, which again, if you visit our website, the Innovator Handbook is your friend here, it's got all the information. It's really setting out that the device must be developed, tested and refined through meaningful engagement with and involvement of people with lower limb paralysis who are representative of the device's eventual users. This is to ensure that the resulting prototype device will meaningfully support improvements in users' mobility and independence. The entrant will be expected to demonstrate how co-creation with people with lower limb paralysis who are representatives of the device's eventual users has helped to shape the creation and development of the prototype device. So that's co-creation. Second eligibility criterion is skills. So we ask that entrants have the capacity to develop their entry. If selected as a finalist, you as the entrant must have capacity to, by the final judging panel in 2020, to develop your device to the point of being a prototype capable of user demonstration with a demonstrable route to market to make it available to users. So it may be in your application form, you may want to kind of hire some people with expertise or get some consultants in to support you, and that's fine to set out, but we really do want to make sure that we're giving out the money, sort of grants of $500,000 are considerable, and we have a responsibility to make sure that the teams who take on that money are able to use it effectively. It is also worth noting that English is the official language of the challenge, and any entry and communications to the challenge must be made in English. So it's perfectly fine, of course, if that's your second language, but we do ask that everything is in English for the challenge. So global entries. This criteria is really about emphasizing that we are open to entries across the world. There are some restrictions due to legal reasons that mean that the exceptions there are entries based in a country that's subject to UN embargoes, arms embargoes. and that also, because we're open to global entries, entrants must have an understanding of their device's intended market and be able to demonstrate how the device is suitable for that market. We want to emphasize that we welcome entries from individuals, teams, and organizations. However, if selected, individuals and teams must be willing to incorporate before they can receive funds. And entrants to the challenge must have reached the age of majority in their jurisdictions of residence at the time of entry. The next criterion is around intellectual property. Of course, entrants must own or have written permission to use the intellectual property relevant to their entry. All entrants need to demonstrate a willingness to share information about their devices for the purposes of the challenge. Because as part of the challenge, Toyota Mobility Foundation and its challenge partners, such as us here at Nesta, intend to carry out publicity activity as well as publish research into the insights gained through the challenge. These activities, however, will not divulge information relating to intellectual property in the public domain. Of course, if we are going to judge an entry, we need to understand how it works. So we do need to know sensitive information for the assessment process. And as funders, we need to understand exactly what we're funding. However, we wouldn't put out into the public anything that is sensitive intellectual property. And as with the past prizes that we here at the Challenge Prize Centre have run, we are very experienced in running prizes with very technical teams developing very technical things and have lots of intellectual property considerations. And we're very used to managing communications around that and making sure that we don't infringe on and risk anyone's intellectual property. The final point is around politics. So the challenge cannot fund any activity that is party political intention, use, or presentation, nor to support or promote religious activity. We cannot fund activities that support or contribute to any criminal enterprise or antisocial force. So if anyone's wondering what on earth an antisocial force is, don't worry, you're probably not alone. That really is a legal term in Japanese law, and it effectively means organized crime. So it's just really emphasizing that we cannot support, of course, any criminal enterprise. So, as you know, the deadline is on the 15th of August, but how have we got to this point? We launched in November after an extensive research and design process where we talked to many different innovators, users, and mix of both, and advocates, funders, developers, to understand where the gaps were and how we could shape a prize that would really help to meaningfully improve people's mobility and independence. So following our launch in November, we have been promoting and reaching out to potential entrants, and glad to see that we've at least reached you guys, and we're excited to see what you share with us. We have already had our Discovery Awards. So the Discovery Awards, the deadline for those Discovery Awards has passed. We've given out that funding, and that was $500,000 in funding split between 10 awardees. And if you're concerned that you were not a Discovery awardee, but you still want to enter the challenge, that is absolutely fine. The Discovery Awards were an additional stream of funding, seed funding effectively, to help entrants who might otherwise struggle to develop their applications due to financial constraints. So those awardees have been received funding and are developing their applications. And due to the fact that they've received funding, they are required to submit a good faith application. However, the 15th of August is still very much open. Those 10 teams are in no way guaranteed a place in the final 5. So it's very much an open field still. So the deadline in August, we will gather up all the applications that we receive, and I'll ask Garrett in a moment to speak about those and what that application process will be. But after we've received the applications, we will go through a process, and there'll be an announcement in January. And after that, we'll know who our 5 finalists are, and that's really the point where you'll have between January in 2019 and September in 2020 to get your device from where it is at entry point to being a prototype capable of user demonstration with a demonstrable route to market. And that will mean that you are in the running for an additional $1 million. So I'd like to hand over to Garrett, who will, as our representative from our knowledge expert and assessment partner, will talk a bit through what happens after the 15th of August between then and our judging panel. Over to you, Garrett.
All right. So once the deadline closes, we will be furiously sorting through your applications here. And really the first step in the process is verification on them. We'll make sure that the applications that we receive are legitimate applications that we put forward, that they meet all the eligibility criteria, and that they are complete. Once we verify them, we will actually have our team here basically read through them and sort of assign what category they are, and we'll assign two reviewers to each application, or assessors to each application. The assessors are folks that we have identified and we have recruited that are experts in this field. A lot of them are people with disabilities themselves, as well as scientists, engineers, clinicians, policy experts, wide range of expertise. But we'll do our best to get your application to somebody that we think will understand it and relate to it, as we know there's likely to be a lot of different expertise that we need to sort of understand these things, and we'll send them out. Once the assessors have them, they'll have a time period and they'll review them based on a scoring criteria. And they'll also be able to assign their feedback to that application. Once all the reviews are back in from the assessors, here at Hurl will compile that list and put that information together, create some summaries, and then we'll send that feedback to the judging panel, who will make sort of the final decisions on which applications move forward in the competition. Charlotte, did I accurately represent that correctly?
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Garrett. I think the key, so just to sum up Garrett's information there, the key thing to acknowledge is that we do have quite a robust assessment process. The aim of that assessment process is to really support our judges, who are fantastic, and I really recommend going to our website and looking up the kind of wealth of expertise and knowledge we've been able to bring together. And for us, that's really a testament to the kind of to their belief in the vision that we've set out in the prize as well. So that was really great to see. But the point to all of the assessment is really to provide the judges with the right level of information to support their decision making and to make sure that they make the strongest decision possible. As I said, we're expecting a big range of a large number of entries, and we're expecting a real range of devices and approaches. And it's really to support the judges in their decision making so that they can look at the aim of the challenge as set out in our judging criteria, I beg your pardon, in the challenge statement, and look at all those entries against the challenge statement using the judging criteria to understand which 5 should be selected for further funding. So that judging panel will happen in November, and some of you may be wondering, why are the finalists being announced in January if the panel's in November? To answer your question, it's the last 3 days of November, and then, as I'm sure you can appreciate, we will need to contract, Toyota Mobility Foundation will need to contract with those 5 finalists. So that period is just to allow those conversations to happen. But the announcement will be made in January. So we know that there's lots of questions out there, and we also know that we want to make sure that people are as clear as possible in what they need to do to be successful in the challenge. because we want to, as I said, make this as open and accessible for people to get involved, to enter if they've got a great idea and the skills to potentially make that happen. And so we wanted to make sure that people weren't getting tripped up just because they didn't understand the process. So Garrett and his colleagues have come up with some application tips. And Garrett, do you want to go through them now and let everyone know what they need to watch out for?
Absolutely, thank you. So even before I start this, in all likelihood, we're going to get a lot of great applications. So the difference between the folks that make the top 5 and the folks that maybe make, that are just the next rung up is going to be very, very slim. So our first thing, bullet point here is follow the rules. We really want to make sure that your idea fits the eligibility criteria as you're formulating it. You want to make sure that you fill out all parts of the application correctly and accurately. You need to adhere to all the specific video and document lengths. I can't stress this enough. There's not going to be, we have to be fair to everybody. So don't try to sneak anything in there that, that's going to run over. We're just going to end up removing it. So please stick to that. And also remember that the deadlines are very strict. It's controlled by a computer. Once the competition entrance time periods close, it is closed. There won't be a do-over. There won't be anything accepted later. So make sure you understand that it's a very strict deadline. Our second point is clearly state the problem you're addressing. When we reviewed some of the discovery applications, some of the applications that were harder to understand were the ones that really didn't really state the problem clearly. We really want you to explain the current state of the world or the problem. And then we want you to go on to explain how many people will be served by that solution. And then we really want you to go through and explain what the impact is on the population that the solution will serve. Our third point is to really clearly state how the intelligent systems or smart technologies will be utilized. There's a lot of different possibilities here, but some things to consider might be, explaining what sensors you're using, explaining the software or even a mechanical decision-making ability of the system is, and explain maybe what the actuation is in very broad terms. But there are a lot of terms in this space that are very vague. The more specific you can be about what you're doing, the more likely the reviewers are going to be able, or the assessors are going to be able to understand what you're actually doing. Number 4 is to be original. We're really hoping that there's going to be some fantastic solutions that come out of this, and solutions that are new, that are not available today. There's a couple traps here along the way. Really, you want to make sure you perform your research to make sure that the solution is unique. There is actually a lot of things out there in this space. Some of them are produced by smaller companies. Some of them are available only geographically. Make sure you thoroughly do your research before you present something to make sure that somebody hasn't already used this solution to address this specific problem. That said, if you are improving on existing technologies, which we do find acceptable, you need to clearly state where the current state of the art stops and where you're adding knowledge and value in a new solution to clearly define that. And lastly, actively engage users of this technology and the stakeholders within that group. It's likely to be the person using the technology, but there also may be clinicians that may be prescribing the technology. There could be people that need to service the technology There could be caregivers that need to interact with the technology. So please consider that. Make sure you're doing that. You know, it's great if you actually have people on your team that are actively engaged, that aren't just one step in the process, that they are the process. And we really want you to really understand the impact of your solution. So that means getting out into the field. That means talking to people. That means engaging with people in your community. So those are our quick list of things that maybe we can highlight that would help get you on the right track when putting your application together. So I'm going to turn it back over here to Charlotte, and she's going to explain a little bit of the details on how to enter the competition.
Great, thanks, Garrett. So how to enter? First of all, please thoroughly review the website. We've tried to make it as clear as possible. If you have any questions or unclear, do get in touch with us, mobilityunlimited@challenges.org. That inbox is regularly monitored during business hours. On our website, as I've mentioned several times, the Innovator Handbook really does set out the information that you need. Also, make sure you're looking at the FAQs and terms and conditions for the challenge before you're applying. In the entry handbook, there is an entry checklist. Make sure you go through that and make sure that you can tick all the boxes. It would be a real shame for something, a great idea to have to be disqualified because they hadn't completed the process appropriately. How do you actually enter? You do it through our website. It's very clearly marked in the Get Involved part of the website, and basically you go through, you'll click the link, it will take you through to an online platform that we use called Submittable. What you do there is you go through, you set up a profile and complete your application. You can also on our website find a PDF version of the application form. Please do feel free to download that. But we do recommend that in advance of the deadline, you go into the Submittable platform, play around with it, start your application, so then if you have any issues, you can let us know. If you have any issues due to accessibility, please do get in touch. We've done our best to try and cater for as many accessibility requirements on our website as possible, but we do appreciate that we may not have managed it for everyone, and we are able to make reasonable accommodations for people if they require. But please do get in touch, particularly to make sure that we have enough time to accommodate. So the sooner you can let us know, the sooner we can work out how to accommodate your needs and make sure that you're also able to enter the challenge. As I said, any questions, any concerns, do get in touch with us, mobilityunlimited@challenges.org. Please do also follow our social media channels. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. It's also a great way to engage. Perhaps you're looking for people to join your team. Perhaps you're looking for users to give you more feedback about what they're looking for. Our social media channels are great places to do that. Also on our website is our community page. On the community page, you can set up a profile if you're a team looking for people with skills, users who can bridge both the skills need and the user perspective for your team. You can set up a profile and let people know that you're looking for what you're looking for, but you can also peruse those and find people who are offering themselves. Either they feel that they have a skill to add, or they feel that they could be a great user, or they are a combination of both, as we know many, many people are. So just to remind you there, on the website, that really is your hub for all the information. Through our website, you can access the online portal to submit your application. If you have any issues, any questions, do get in touch with us, and do follow our social media, both to keep up with the challenge and any information we're sharing, but also to access people who are also interested in the challenge who you might want to work with. So we're getting to the Q&As. We do have some questions that we received prior, so we'll start through those and then we'll have a go at responding to the questions that you've shared. So thank you for doing that. If you haven't shared any questions yet, across the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see a box which says Q&A. At the moment, there's 4 listed there. Click on that, and that's where you can ask your question. Equally, you can also do it in the chat function. If we aren't able to answer your question today, please don't worry. We will be capturing this webinar in a blog. There will be the video of the webinar if you want to review it or you want to share it with members of your team. And we'll also list questions asked and answers given in that blog as well. Also, if there's anything that maybe occurs to you later, as I said, please do get in touch with us with the email, mobilityunlimited@challenges, that's plural, challenges.org. And also do have a look at the FAQs. They are pretty detailed, so there's often a question that is answered there, and if not, get in touch with us. So one of the questions that we received before the start of the webinar is what sort of smart or intelligent systems means in the context of this challenge. So as per our FAQs, smart or intelligent systems could include artificial intelligence, machine learning, or other technologies. They are systems comprising of sensors and processors that take a sense input and automatically transform it into an output. Incorporating these systems into your device should accomplish through improved dynamic response to one or more of the following: user intention, responding to the environment, the user's body, or improving the functional parameters of the device. Another question we received in advance was whether there's an upper limit to technology readiness for any entries submitted. And Garrett, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, I'd like to answer this one. So the first thing maybe to unwrap this question is if you're not familiar with the technology readiness levels, use your favorite search engine and type technology readiness level in, and it'll give you a rundown of ways to categorize what phase of development your device is. While we don't have explicitly a level where we're going to cut off for devices, we are looking for new and innovative ideas that incorporate smart intelligent systems within them. But really where we are going to cut things off is if your device is already on the market and being sold, then it would not be eligible for the challenge. Again, it can be a modification of an existing device, but if the form you're presenting is already available on the market, then it would be ineligible. Now, keep in mind, we do need to have some sort of working model to enter the challenge. It could be a scale model, could be a little bit incomplete, still a little bit of work. But however, if you're selected as a finalist, part of the work as that will be to develop a prototype capable of user demonstration, by 2020, summer 2020 here. So have to be that far along by that point in time to really be competitive here. So hopefully that addresses that question.
Thanks, Garrett. So another question that we've received was for the Mobility Unlimited Challenge. It's mentioned that the prototype would be developed in Toyota. What kind of support would Toyota provide? So what's worth noting here before we go further is that the challenge is supported by the Toyota Mobility Foundation. They are an independent charitable foundation based in Japan. They, of course, were endowed by Toyota Corporation, and that's where the link is. Now, the charity, being a charity, nothing it does is to promote the bottom line for Toyota. So it is very much a separate charitable endeavor. However, they are able to draw on the incredible networks and knowledge that Toyota Corporation holds to help support their endeavors. So it's a really kind of a benefit for the charity, that link. So what kind of support does Toyota provide? So, of course, the foundation, the principal support the foundation is providing is $500,000 to each of the finalists, which I'm sure you'll agree is a significant investment in each team. The reason that we've prioritized that funding is recognizing that, one, we were hoping to get a range of type of entrants, so they may have very different needs. So we couldn't create a support package, for instance, with financial advice and business planning, for example, that would be appropriate for all of the teams. So by emphasizing financial support, they're able to prioritize what they need. And we are quite flexible as long as you're able to show that you're spending the money reasonably to the furtherance of the development of your device, and that is kind of something that the spend is reasonable. We are flexible about exactly what that spend needs to be. We also recognize, and just to go off on a little sidebar here, that the budgets that you submit in August are likely to develop over kind of the extended period of the finalist stage. So we will not hold you strictly, completely to sort of like the cent and the dollar of amount that you thought that you would spend, as long as that is a discussion, as long as that we are able to understand how that is a reasonable expenditure. So, you know, if you realize that you need to invest perhaps a little more money in user testing and the expenses around that, that would be fine. You just need to keep us abreast if you become a finalist. However, if you decide that you need to have a very expensive holiday to the Bahamas, we would have some serious concerns, and that would not be allowed. But in terms of the other support, as I mentioned, the Toyota Mobility Foundation is really lucky to be able to draw on the expertise of the Toyota Corporation. And as part of the challenge, they'll be working to identify mentoring opportunities that Toyota could bring in, both the foundation and the corporation, from leading experts. And that may include, for example, Toyota engineers and expertise in various areas of engineering. So exactly what that additional support will be will depend, of course, and rightly so, on who our finalists are. So we'll be looking as we receive the entries, as we start refining the long list, and then as we know who our final five are, we'll be continually working to identify opportunities. A lot of work is already happening, but of course, when we know who we're supporting, we can push forward a bit further. So, another question we've received was, we are planning to submit a video summarising our work as part of the challenge. Would that be acceptable? Is there a length limit? Garrett, would you like to take this one?
Yes, thank you. So yes, the answer is yes. You need to submit actually 2 videos. They are 2 minutes max. One will be geared towards your overview of the device, and the second one will be a demonstration of the working model. We have to strictly limit them to 2 minutes in fairness to everybody. If a video is submitted that's in excess of 2 minutes, anything in excess of 2 minutes will not be considered at all by the assessors. And this is just to ensure fairness to everybody, as well as fairness to our assessors, that we're not watching feature films here on devices. So another thing that may be around this is that the assessors will not consider any information outside what is requested. So, you know, they will not be looking at your website in sort of that way to get around the application. Again, in fairness to everybody entering. That I'm going to hand it back over to Charlotte for the next question.
Great, thanks, Garrett. Conscious of time, and we just want to acknowledge that we're not going to realistically be able to answer all of your questions. Apologies for anyone who we don't answer on the webinar, but as I said, we will answer all questions in the blog that will accompany, and we'll be making sure to send out, 1, to get that blog up as quickly as possible, and 2, to send you guys out as attendees a link so that you're aware when it's up. So just to summarize some of the questions that we've received as well before and during this webinar, there was another question about whether someone could provide more than 4 minutes of video linking to website. As Garrett very nicely answered there, no, you really do need to stick to the parameters of the entry form. If you have any questions about what those exactly are, if we haven't been able to clarify things during this webinar, please do get in touch via the email. We've also had some questions around budget, travel. As mentioned, we are reasonable in recognizing that our goal here is to make sure that the entries are developed and the devices are developed. And we actually recognize that, of course, as the technology develops, as you refine it, and because of that emphasis that we place on the importance of co-creation, of engaging with users, that device, that entry, and your plans are going to evolve. So don't worry too much about exactly, for example, the questions here around travel. Don't worry about if maybe an amount is like you session an amount and it ends up being a little bit more or a little bit less. We're realistic and we will engage with our finalists. But there has been some asks around what travel will be required during the prize, and we can give you some information on that. So yes, there's the demonstration in 2020. You will need someone to come with you to demonstrate the device, but how many members of your team you bring in total is there's an open question there. Other travel, there will be an induction camp, which will be a kind of multi-day camp in early March. And you'll need to bring at least a couple of members of your team to that. There'll be a pre-submission workshop, which is likely to be a 2-day event workshop hosted that will be in early 2020. And then there will be the user testing and the final panel, and that will take place in Pittsburgh in the summer of 2020. So you may be saying, exactly where are we going to be going? Now, there's some reasons I can answer those questions, and there are some reasons that I can't. So of course, we know that our user testing and the panel for selection will take place in Pittsburgh, where Garrett and the rest of our brilliant assessment partners are, and I'm sure the reasons why that is are probably quite obvious. And of course, we know that the announcement in September will be in Tokyo. For the 2 other workshops, the induction camp and the pre-submission workshop for the finalists, the reason that we can't tell you where those are going to be is that we'll be looking at availability of space and also taking a practical look at where our finalists are based. However, those will be most likely in Toyota venues and will be most likely in either North America or Europe. If you have any further questions or anything that's of real concern, please do get in touch with us. I realise now that we're running out of time, and please do rest assured that we will answer all of your questions. So I just want to finish up by saying thank you so much for joining us today. We are incredibly excited about seeing all of your entries when they come in. Please remember that the deadline is the 15th of August, and please be aware that that is at 23:59 hours BST. So please don't get caught out by a time zone difference. Please check where that is in your part of the world. I'd really like to thank you again, all of you, for joining, for the team for supporting this, and obviously for Garrett for being a brilliant partner panelist. And we just want to wish all of you the best of luck, and say we're really excited again how to see your applications and can't wait to find out who our 5 finalists are. Thank you.